You're listening to the uMentor Talk Show. I'm your host, Fatima Al Sayed. And on this weekly talk show, we invite experts to take us through their journeys as professionals in their fields. If you have any questions for our panelists, you can always leave them in the live comment section and we'll get to them during the show. First, we wanted to let you know that we have our Inspire platform, which is a question and answer platform for career advice in our Shia community. As rising professionals, you can ask for great advice from the professionals in our communities. And as mentors, you can give advice to our community's future professionals. And our guest speaker today actually will be part of this, the Inspire platform. So it's available through the Moja app on Android and iOS. And we wanted to also remind you that Emoji Games Special Edition is coming up July 31st to August 1st, 2021 in Richmond, Virginia. For today's show, our speaker is Mariam Jammal. She's a business immigration lawyer, newly licensed Canadian immigration lawyer based in Toronto, and has worked with seasoned and prospective entrepreneurs across the globe. She emphasizes the accessibility and access to justice in her academic and professional career, and recently graduated from the University of Windsor Faculty of Law. There's a lot that Mariam has to offer, so we will hear a lot from her today, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Mariam. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. I'm doing well. How are you, Fatima?
I'm good. I'm very excited to have you because you have so much advice for people. And there's a lot of things that during our pre-interview I was surprised by, nature of law school and being Muslim within this career. And also just, trying to keep that ethical grounds, right, throughout. So can you tell me how you got into law in the first place?
Sure. So I'm a first-generation immigrant in Canada. My parents came here in the 80s and 90s, respectively. So within my immediate circle in Canada, we don't really have any, legal professionals. With that being said, my mom had completed a law degree in Lebanon, and her uncles on her side and some family members as well, uncles on my dad's side, had also had a background in law. So it was always something that was in kind of my sphere of knowledge. And I don't remember specifically why, but I remember vividly at 12 kind of setting my mind to wanting to be a lawyer. Now, did I know what it meant to be a lawyer at 12 is debatable, but I kept finding myself coming back to it throughout, the rest of my high school career and into university as well. It was just advocating for different issues was something I was very passionate about. And so naturally law was, seemed like the quickest, or rather the best fit for what I was passionate about. So throughout university, your worldview and your, vision sort of expands to what else there is. You're learning a lot more, you're broadening your perspective and your horizons. So through university, when I started to get a better understanding of what I wanted and what careers were available and what things were on offer, I did kind of go back and forth. I wasn't really sure if, law was really the best way to do with my life what I wanted to do, which is, to help people. And I know it sounds kind of, counterintuitive that that's where my mind went, but everything I was hearing about the field of law and how law is practiced and, all the representations of legal professionals were not necessarily the most favorable. And so I was, rightly worried that I was going to invest all this time and energy into something that is completely different than what I wanted to do with my life. But
was it from like community, or was it from people who had been within the field? Was it from like professionals, professors? Where were you getting that information?
It's like a combination of things. I remember distinctly, there is a lot of misperceptions about what it means to be a lawyer and what lawyers actually do within a lot of our communities. There's, the whole lawyers are liars. A phrase that keeps circling, which, could not be farther from the truth. But there are, another thing that stood out to me was at a pre-law society event, we had, I say we, but they had brought over a lawyer to speak. And one of the things he had said was, to be successful in this career, to actually, like law school and enjoy your career, you have to really like reading and writing. And
Mhm.
I was, at that stage, I was like, I'm not opposed to reading and writing, but that's not what
That's not all you wanna do.
that's not all I want to do. I can't, like, I couldn't really imagine that my entire life, we're talking careers are like 40 plus
Yeah.
years, right? To just spend 40 years reading and writing and highlighting seemed like from the furthest thing that I wanted to do. I really want to work with people and be more impactful in the issues and in the issues that I was really passionate about and really want to change or bring change towards.
Mhm.
So I put it out of my mind. And then by chance, an acquaintance of mine, towards the end of my third year, posted on Facebook that she'd just been accepted into the University of Windsor for law school. And I didn't know that Windsor had a law school. So I took a leap of faith and I checked what they had to offer. I checked the program, and I was very pleasantly surprised, and something just clicked in me. Like, it was a very outwardly social justice and access to justice based program that they offered. They really paid a lot of attention to those issues, where a lot of other law schools, while they had, extracurriculars and like different opportunities where you can get involved in social justice and access to justice, it wasn't necessarily a school mandate. So I
Mm.
was really, really attracted to that. And it was like a feeling I had inside that this is the law school I really want to go to. Like, I think I applied to different law schools, but I kind of knew that this was really the only law school I really wanted to be at. And
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, I applied and I did my LSAT. I submitted my application, and alhamdulillah, I got in. Best 3 years of my life. Um,
What's the application
yeah.
process like for,
Okay.
listeners? I think, I don't know if it's different between Canada and US, so, if you wanna give us that Canadian,
Sure.
perspective of what that process is like.
Sure. So, frankly speaking, you don't have to have a specific background in anything in particular to apply or get into or be successful in law school or even a
Mhm.
career in law. I had friends who'd done their undergraduate majors in the arts. I had friends who'd majored in English literature, physics, engineering. Um, I was a humanities, social science major. So, your background provides you with different strengths that will play a part
Mhm.
in your journey and in building yourself as a professional. But basically, I think it's pretty standard across the board for North America, or for, at least the US and Canada. It's the LSAT, your GPA, and your extracurricular, co-curricular
Mhm.
activities slash CV. Now, there has been a sort of rising shift, and it is, I would say it started out with Windsor Law. Windsor Law is very holistic in their application process. Usually when you ask someone for advice about, what do I need? What's my checklist of things I have to do or have to like check off to apply successfully and get into law school? It will usually be, you have to have a very, very high GPA. You have to have
Mhm.
like an insanely high LSAT score, and you have to have some background experience working at a law firm in some capacity, and like reference letters from partners at firms, to really be a competitive candidate, which could, be true for different places. But for me, I had no background working in law. I'd never worked in a law firm before. My LSAT score and GPA were, alhamdulillah, they were fine, but they weren't like, my God, 10 top percentile of the scores. And to be honest, I did get creative with my application. So instead of looking at like, okay, here's point blank the quickest, example of why I would be fit for the field. Here's when I worked at a law firm. I kind of broke it down and looked at what are the skills that I would need to be an effective law student and
Mhm.
lawyer. And so I broke it down into categories. As an academic, it is, at the end of the day, you're going to school, right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to showcase my, what I'd done academically. So for me, that looked like I'd worked on several peer-reviewed journals, undergraduate journals. I'd had some of my work published, so I highlighted that. I, really wanted to highlight my interpersonal and communication skills because, a very large part of what you do in law is talk to people. People are coming to you with problems or issues, and you need to be able to communicate and, absorb the information they're giving you and be able to strategize, and more importantly, I would even say, is reassure them and empathize with them, right? So interpersonal communication was really important. Leadership skills, when you're strategizing, when you become a lawyer, the more seniority you have, the more you're likely to be the one who's setting the strategy and making the decision. So you want to be able to show your leadership and your teamwork skills. So I broke it down that way, and I looked at the different experiences I had, and I tried to categorize it in terms of what experiences helped me develop each of these skills that I believed that I needed to be a good lawyer, that I could demonstrate to the admissions committee. So again, none of them were legal experiences, but I really drew on those different things. I'd been involved in different undergraduate students unions or student societies. I'd worked, I was actually a resume advisor at one point at University of Toronto. So I drew on that, my ability to synthesize and translate information into specific formats and specific, more legible and digestible ways. I worked with a nonprofit that really focused on, what was important to me was it was called Mosaic Institute. So it really focused on appreciating the mosaic of cultures and experiences in Canada, and what those experiences looked like for people from different backgrounds. So I focused on those things that I was passionate about and put them all together to build this sort of on paper explanation of who I was or who I wanted to be. And I said a little prayer. I ran it, my friends and I ran them by each other, and we just sent off our applications, and alhamdulillah, got in, and it's been a great journey since.
I love that it's not like you are showcasing that you don't necessarily have to have that particular experience that they tell you that you need before you get into law school, or you need to have this and you need to have that. You can draw from your own experiences and sort of, that shows, I think, skills of being a good lawyer, persuade them into accepting you.
Right. And I guess that's like test number one, right?
Yeah.
Can you persuade them to accept you? Now, don't get me wrong. It probably, like, if you have no exposure to what it's like to work in the field, it may be a good idea to get some exposure ahead of time, just so you can really get an idea of what the day-to-day is like, right? Because it's not like Suits. It's not as like fast-paced and like dramatic as everyone necessarily makes it out to be or portrays it to be. So it's a good idea to get more information, more knowledge about what you're getting yourself into, what you're committing to. But with that said, you don't really need, at least in my opinion, you don't need that to be able to get into law school.
Moving on to your particular field. So you're a business immigration lawyer. What does that mean, and why did you choose to be a business immigration lawyer?
Sure. So business immigration, it's sort of exactly what it sounds like. It's helping business people or businesses come to Canada or transfer employees to Canada or start up businesses in Canada, or I guess wherever they are. I'm sure it's also business immigration in the US. Yeah, for economic and business related reasons. So this could include entrepreneurs who have an idea and they want to launch it in Canada, seasoned business people who want to expand or set up a new business in Canada. It could also be businesses in Canada wanting to transfer employees or individuals from abroad to come to work for them in Canada. It's very much an economic angle, more so than a humanitarian and social justice sort of based angle than in the way that personal and refugee law is, which is interesting because I think I initially went into law school wanting to practice immigration and refugee law. A lot of the classes I'd taken, the courses I was most active in and most enjoyed, and the initiatives I kind of supported and wanted to be involved in and was involved in were around refugee law, right? And this was,
Mhm.
we were talking around the time where Canada really re-upped its commitment to resettling Syrian refugees. So it was also like a very hot topic, if you want to call it that. And there were a lot of opportunities, a lot more research, a lot more there was a lot more attention being paid to it from different angles, from a legal angle, from a policy angle, from a nonprofit angle. There was a lot of opportunities and interest in seeing this move forward. So that's what I initially, because that's what my experience was, and coming from a background, again, as a first generation immigrant, I wanted to be able to do something that paid sort of homage to that, but also
Mhm.
gave me the opportunity to give back. So I went to law school wanting to be a personal and immigration and refugee lawyer. And that's what I started off with at the firm that I started with in my first year.
Mhm.
They were practicing personal immigration, refugee law, and they hired me back for my second summer and my articling term. And now I'm I'm with them full time. But over the course of that sort of 3-4 years, they switched or they refocused their attention and their energy on business immigration as their specialization.
Mm.
And there was a moment where they offered me to continue on with them, and I thought to myself, this is vastly different than what I had initially wanted to
Imagine.
do. Is this like, am I just looking for job security? Is this really what I'm interested in? If I say no, am I closing doors to myself? Am
Mm.
I had to have that conversation, but I took a leap of faith again. I do a lot of that. I kind of took a leap of faith, and I decided, you know what, it doesn't hurt to try it.
Mhm.
Um, it's something new. It's something new to learn. It comes with its own skills and knowledge, and that's never a bad thing. And alhamdulillah, I tried it out, and I actually quite enjoyed it. And I really enjoy working for my firm as well, which was also um, helped me make my decision, I guess. Um, and it helped me also reframe the way I thought about access to justice
Mm.
and social justice work.
So that's
Um,
actually
you know,
my next question, how did you fulfill that desire to help people through business immigration? Because when you look at it like, business, okay, so how are you helping people really, right?
mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
that was
So
one question you had for yourself.
yes, exactly. Is can I still be helping people in the same capacity, in the same way that I want to?
Mhm.
And it really, it actually sparked a really important conversation internally for me. Is that why do we look at access to justice just within like legal aid or
Mhm.
poverty law? There's always conversations about how the cutoff, the financial or economic cutoff, or income rather cutoff for legal aid is so low that people who are in the lower to middle class category cannot access it even when they really need it. So
Mhm.
there are other ways that you can help, but more so as well is what I found working in business immigration is that yes, money talks, but um, discrimination is also pervasive. No matter how much money you have,
Mhm.
it still it's not like a free pass if you have money to invest in the country. Like, oh yeah, come on over.
Okay.
We still find that there are some areas and there are some um, sometimes depending on the nationality, the place that people are applying from, they do have getting an acceptance for them, or getting
It's
um,
harder.
a good, yeah, or like an approval, or swift processing for them is more difficult than others, whether it's more prolonged processing time, it takes longer, or the way they look at applications is materially, literally vastly different from
Mhm.
the attention they pay to an application from let's be honest, someone from the US or the UK or Australia or other kind of Western countries, right? So
Mhm.
we do see there is still that need for advocacy, and this is still a group of people who are unfamiliar with the system, who want to be able to set up a better life for themselves, whether it's because they want to move to Canada or they just want to expand their business to be able to it's their freedom, they have the freedom to do that, right? So
Mhm.
um there still is a need for it, and you still have people entrusting you with essentially their lives. You're privy to a lot of information from
Yeah.
their something as material as, like, yeah, there are personal identification, their finances. They confide with you about a lot of different aspects of their lives, because they trust you to do that work for them. And reciprocally as well, on the other side is, it's not a bad thing to, to be building this kind of skill set. Just because I'm not working directly with personal immigration, I'm not actively helping the members of my community bring more people over, or what have you.
It's still
I'm
that
still
experience.
It's still an experience, and it's still something valuable to offer. Our
Mhm.
communities, especially younger immigrant communities or newer immigrant communities, are full of businesses, independently run, independently owned businesses. Um, and there's a lot to be said about the ways that you can provide or be of service to your community
Mhm.
in, I guess, more obscure capacities, whether as a
Yeah.
corporate lawyer or criminal or employment law or civil or whatever the case may be. You still have something to offer. If nothing else, then you have an understanding of how to read and interpret and share the law, right?
Mhm.
um, and you're not limited to serving your community by your career. Maybe the path you decide to take gives you more financial freedom to be able to donate more to your community.
Yeah.
Maybe it provides you networks to help, people in your community access the resources and access professionals and systems they would not have otherwise had access to. It's a lot of, you just have to take that moment and expand the way you think of your role within society, within your community, within your profession as well.
Mhm. Going off of that, so work-life balance,
Mhm.
and specifically, I want to get into like as a female, as a Muslim female, uh, like generally in our religion and culturally, I mean, I chose my career based on, how much availability I'm going to have for my family later on, right? So was that something that went through your mind while choosing this career? And how easy is it for a female, a visible Muslim woman to be working within a law firm in these countries that we live in, the Western society? So
Mhm.
there's like a two-parter.
Yeah, I think every job, every profession has its challenges. I think
Mhm.
the legal profession is definitely one of the more demanding of your time. With that said, I don't think it's impossible to develop a work-life balance, and I think it is a matter of, first of all, you need to know what your priorities are, and by all means, they're subject to shifting over time. That's totally fine. For me, I kind of, wanted family is a very, very big part of my life. And I did want something that would allow me a little bit more flexibility, both in terms of my workday and otherwise, just flexibility in general, so that I can balance those aspects, right? Whether it's, just with my parents and siblings, or later on when, inshallah, if I get married and have kids, it's different considerations. And, again, priorities will shift over time.
Yeah.
Um, it's not impossible. I think a large part of it is finding the right workplace for you. There
Mhm.
are definitely going to be workplaces where it's very high volume and like intensive, and you need to be, you're just, by virtue of the work you have, you'll be expected or and need to put in a lot more hours to get the work
Mhm.
done. And there are places that are, a little less high volume, or have a manageable workload, or more flexible schedules, and understanding about people's different priorities and commitments. Work is
Mhm.
important, but work isn't your life, right?
Yeah.
um, whether you have a family or whether you have kids or not, it's important, even just for your mental health, to like really take a step back and
Yeah.
de-stress before diving back in. So
Something
it's
you
not
mentioned
impossible. Yeah.
before also is like establishing boundaries from the get-go. I
Yeah.
think that's something that's a little difficult, right? Advocating for yourself and establishing those boundaries. If you want to expand on that one a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that was actually going to be the next thing, is that you have to, wherever you are, it also comes down to how well you can establish your boundaries. And boundaries look different for different people. If you are willing and you have the time and you want to commit to doing more work, by all
Mhm.
means. But if you want to create that balance for yourself, you need to, as difficult as it will be, as potentially the newest or least experienced person on the team or in like the firm, you need to be able to put boundaries. And
Mhm.
I've actually found that the most difficult part is actually setting boundaries for yourself. You know, it's very easy to just assume I need to do more. I need to do X, Y, Z for the firm to, want to hire me back, or want to keep me on, or want to give me more responsibilities, or promote me, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
When in reality, um, it's more so like there isn't that inherent expectation, and you need to be able to place limits for yourself.
Mm.
Um, so that is an exercise in itself. It's always, I feel, much easier rather, to advocate for other people than it is to advocate for
Yeah.
yourself. And it's just a
Especially
skill
if you're
that,
new and you're still just starting
yes,
out and you feel
yes,
less, secure in your job, right?
exactly, right? So it's just something that will get easier with time, and as you grow more confident in yourself and your abilities and in your value to the team, right? You
Mhm.
may be the newest person, but being the newest person also means you have fresher ideas, or you can look at things from a different perspective and be able to identify areas that need improvement, whatever the case may be. If you weren't valuable, they wouldn't keep you. At the end of the
That's
day,
true.
it's a business, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, be confident. It's going to be a learning curve, as is every new aspect in life. And start early, start setting those boundaries so you lay a good and strong foundation for yourself. And if honestly a workplace isn't working for you, move on. Worst
Mhm.
case scenario, you still have a license, you're a lawyer, and you can set up as a sole practitioner and have all the flexibility that you need, right? So
Easier said
there's
than done, but
yes, of course, easier said than done, but it does give you, like, it's not the
that
end of the world if
flexibility.
you have
Mhm.
to move to something else.
Yeah. We have about 4 minutes left, but I really
Mhm.
wanna, bring up a crucial issue, that you spoke about during our pre-interview, which was the nature of, law school or being part of, that environment, even for, people going to journalism. I can speak from my own experiences. A lot of the culture, going into internships or going into, different sorts of, social settings, I always had to limit where I could go and what I could do. So I think for you, you had to experience that for those 3 years of law school. So can you tell us a little bit about it, and how can someone who is Muslim navigate this environment?
Yeah. I think for the most part, up until we reach like grad school, we're more or less sheltered from having to make those difficult decisions, to be honest, or being having to navigate these kinds of um, situations, because through most of undergrad, it's like the environment is very non-alcoholic, right? It's like just a
Mhm,
principle the school doesn't serve, no school functions serve, or what have you. And then you enter the undergrad, the graduate sphere, where everyone's of legal drinking age, and it is one of the pastimes, and you are confronted with the fact that a lot of the ways that people build personal and professional networks between themselves and build relationships with each other is um, through networking events or socials at
mhm,
pubs or bars or with alcohol. So, and some people are okay being in that environment as long as no one, asks them to drink, and some aren't. I'm not comfortable being at a pub or a bar. So it is, again, like, it is, it has its own, not struggles, but it is its own dilemma to kind of work around, is like,
mhm,
how do you build your own networks, and how do you build these relationships that are supposed to carry you throughout law school and then into the legal field as well. These become sort of the people who refer others to you, or who can refer you to jobs, or whatever the case may be.
mhm.
How do you build those relationships when those core activities that other people are engaging in, you're choosing not to engage in.
Even in terms
um
of like future job prospects, meeting for
yeah,
dinners, that kind of stuff. It's
exactly. You're at a firm, you're waiting to see if they're going to hire you back, or they're going to invite you back, and they want to go out, for drinks on a Friday night, and they build,
Mhm,
like, one of the big things always is, no matter how you can be a very, very skilled person, you can be very knowledgeable, but one of the things that there definitely, any workplace, not just in law, is going to look at is, how well do you fit into firm culture? How
mhm.
well do you get along with the team? And it is a little bit of an uphill battle to kind of assert yourself in
Maintain
those
your
ways.
own, yeah.
Yeah, maintain your own and assert yourself, and say, I'm a fun person. Yeah, we can definitely hang out, we can have a good time, but I'm not going to engage in those kinds of activities, and I will be missing out on that, like, Friday night drinks or whatever they want to do. um does that make it impossible to move ahead and advance your career? No, not at all. But it does kind of force you to be a little bit more creative in the ways that you build connections, and it does get you thinking a little bit about how you want to navigate and how throughout law school, but also throughout your career, how you want to navigate. And again, it's one of those things where it's the best thing is to start early and just lay down your boundaries and your convictions and values early on. Because if you set people up to compromise them from the beginning, it'll be harder to walk back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting.
I mean, you're living proof that it is possible and you can get through this.
Yes, it's possible. Yeah.
Even if it is a little harder, but you should stay strong to your morals and your ethical standing. Law is all about ethics. So if you can't stay true to your own ethics, then what does that say about you within your professional career, right?
Right. And people will be looking at things like that, right?
Yeah.
They'll be looking at who you are as a person, because that also becomes, you are your career, you are your own, a reflection of your own reputation and your own career, right? It's a license is sort of like a personal brand. Yes, you'll be hired and you'll work with firms that have their own reputation, but you're also building your own reputation within the profession. As you go along and you become more well-versed and you interact with more people, people are going to know you. And so you have to ask yourself, what do you want people to know about you? What do I want people to know and associate with me when my name is brought up or when they think of me? Not to say that you should live by other people's standards, but it is important to know what you want to project and what you want to share with the world in that way.
Mariam, it was lovely speaking to you today. What is your final piece of advice for our listeners before we wrap up?
My final piece of advice is honestly, go for it. It has its own challenges, whether it's, go for it no matter what you're passionate about and what you want to do. Even if it seems like an uphill battle, even if you don't necessarily have the same amount of resources or networks that, others around you or others in the field do, that shouldn't be a barrier for you. You shouldn't let that be a barrier for you. And alhamdulillah, it's a global network, right? Like, you can reach out. I'm available if anyone wants to talk about what it's like, what that process is like, what, the field is like. Reach out, build that network around yourself and push through. You are as deserving and as suited for any profession as anyone else, even if no one has done it before, even if you don't see yourself there yet.
Thank you so much, Mariam.
Thank you for having me, Fatima.
It was our pleasure. You were just listening to the uMentor Talk Show. If you missed this or future shows, you can always hear the replay on the uMentor website under Prior Talk Shows. And you can listen to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify if you missed a show. Umoja Outreach Foundation, uniting and empowering the Shia community.